Woo, you ready for the new day? I don't know if you saw my time boxing one yesterday, but go for it. Actually, get yourself organized for what you're going to do in the coming week. So today, I don't know if you guys realize, but I'm also a corporate attorney, and I do a lot of investigation and have been doing since, I guess, probably right since COVID started. I started a group called Financial Ninjas, where I really get into digging into how do we set ourselves up for success financially, and how do we secure our assets. So, I have some very exciting news. For those of you who've been in my Financial Ninjas class, I have done a lot of things, brought on different people, different experts in financial investing, which talks about how do we make a much higher interest on the money that we put away so that we can have an income stream that's not connected to our job or our work, right? How do we get to a place of financial freedom where we can live off of the interest or live off of passive investments that we make? So that was really where I was focusing my attention. But a big piece of that is how do we keep more of the money that we make, right? Now, the interesting thing about the tax system is that set up to it is set up as a system where there's different types of incentives so that people can, if they're following the right rules, they can save more of their money in taxes. They don't have to pay as high tax rates as what is published. Uh, However, these types of tax strategies, right? These are legal tax strategies. These were set up by the legislature. They were set up. They're agreed to by the IRS. They're not. It's not tax evasion, right? So that's one issue when they have something called tax evasion. We're not talking about that. We're talking about paying taxes but in a strategy where you can put aside more of the money that you make and actually use that to invest. Okay. So that you grow your income and your money much, much faster. And so the last couple months, I have really been digging into some of these tax strategies because they're important for myself and they're important for my clients and people, and just helping people in the world today, right? Because right now, I mean, things are just such a mess. And so often, paying a high tax bill can be a huge burden on people, especially right now. And it keeps you from being able to take that money and create that income stream with it that you want to live off of. So, how do we do this? This has been I have dug into all the different stuff that people traditionally might use, the stuff that's advertised traditionally. Hey, Draxler, for tax retirement, et cetera, et cetera. And what I discovered, I mean, and this was, months ago, last year even, I was like, this traditional stuff is not, doesn't work in the way it's advertised. Hey, Draxler, how are you? Good to see you. Welcome to our. So I said, what are we going to do? What actually works, right? Because I'll tell you what, the very wealthy people do not use the tax strategies that are advertised to everybody else. Because things like 401ks, etc., are really just designed to pack more money into the system so that somebody else can use it and get the benefit from it. And it's not you, frankly. All right. And it also restricts what you can do with it, it restricts how you can use it. You can't take it out until you're like nearly 60, right? So, how are we supposed to retire early? How are we supposed to get off of this rat race money wheel at a younger age and really focus on what we're passionate about or what we want to do in the world, or even build a legacy to pass on to other people, right? The way that we are traditionally taught to do it, I have to tell you, is completely wrong. And it's not just wrong for some people, it's not just wrong if you have a lot of money. It's actually really just super unhelpful, even if you're just starting out. So, Digging into this, I have figured out a lot of structures around this, okay? How to use different tax strategies that wealthy people use and that really smart investors use. And these are tax strategies involving income streams from insurance and from trusts. How do we protect our assets? Not just how we put money into structures where we can defer the taxes and actually use that money for investments, but also how do we protect our assets? Okay. Now, I have talked before about using actual companies, LLCs, etc., as one way to protect your assets. And if that's all you got, then you definitely need to do that at least. Okay. But there are more advanced strategies that they do cost a little bit more to set up, but the benefits are huge. The benefits are massive. And so I am going to be working on creating a presentation about this. And I've been working on looking at like what are the strategies and how would they work for people at different levels of income, even different levels of assets. And is there a way to stage this process, right? Because I have friends and clients and people that I talk to who are everything from like have almost nothing and they're in debt, right? To people who are multi millionaires and people who invest in all different types of things, real estate, crypto, the stock market, right? There's so much out there that people do and invest in, and yet they don't know where to put these assets to be able to control the taxes that are taken on them, as well as actually really protect the assets. So I am excited to announce that I'm going to have that content for you very, very soon. And I'm going to create a presentation that explains these structures and that explains how to do it. And that will probably be in my Financial Ninjas group. But I do want to start making this information available to more people. It is just such a critical thing to know how to do for your protection, to protect your family, to protect your livelihood, to protect your future, and to allow you to really make more from your money, right? How do we get it? How do we keep it? How do we grow it? Right? These are the three questions that we have about money. And the reason I'm passionate about this is when I talk about rising free, right? When we rise free, you have to have an economic financial base to be able to really do this. You have to have a way where you can live free of when people are putting certain restrictions on you that are violations of your rights, that are abusive, right? Instead of having to be in a situation where you might be being um, taken advantage of or abused, or maybe subject to sexual harassment or subject to laws, or not laws necessarily, but regulations in your work that are things that you don't agree with or things you don't want to have put on you in your body, right? They're not necessarily, we're not talking about violations of the framework. We're not talking about you doing that, right? We're not talking about not paying taxes. We're talking about actually setting yourself up for success so that you can live free from abuse and violation, right? And just that you can live free and have the ability to choose what you want to do in your life, the ability to care for yourself, the ability to, if you get fired from your job or you lose your main source of income, how do you live? How do you continue to care for yourself and not end up, on the streets or getting evicted or not being able to pay your mortgage or whatever that is? How do you set yourself up to live free? There was a whole movement that started, I don't know, 20 years ago or something called the FIRE movement, right? Which was financial independence, retire early. That's what it stands for. So that was the goal of where I wanted to get to when I began this journey of saying, how do we make more money from our money, right? And that is a huge piece of it. But the big piece too is no matter how much you make, if you're paying half of that in taxes, you're constantly going to be behind the eight ball. So you're going to constantly be behind. So how do we say, how do we actually structure ourselves, to protect our assets, and to pay taxes in a way that we can control. We can control the money, we can control when taxes are paid, we can actually defer taxes. With some of these structures, you can defer taxes until your death. Okay, that is pretty cool. What does that mean? It means that you have the use of the money until that time. You can use that money if you structure it correctly and if you follow the rules that they have laid out in how to exercise that. It is possible to defer a lot of these taxes, not everything, I'm not saying everything, right? But it is possible to defer a lot of these taxes till your death or your children's death, to push them down the road until a point when you can set up things that will actually pay for those taxes as well. So they're not coming out of the bulk of the money that you have worked so hard to save and to put aside and to invest. So there are structures that we can design that will actually pay the taxes as well on your death, right? And this is what the wealthy people do. They set things up like this so that this is why the wealthy people stay wealthy. They understand how to set this stuff up. And normally it's stuff that is only accessed by the very wealthy, by very, very expensive law firms, who charge you $100,000 to set this stuff up or more, right? And you pay them to process it and all of this sort of stuff. But there are ways to do it at a much more affordable level that I would say most people who have like a decent source of income can afford to do and can then manage to grow their income base much faster. They can grow their investments much faster so that they can reach that point, so that we can reach this point where we have enough money invested that we can live off of the revenue and it's not all being sucked out in taxes. And those taxes can be deferred. So to me, this is a very exciting thing, right? To focus on money and on freedom. It is really setting yourself up for freedom. And how do you put those assets in a way that they are protected? They're protected against creditors. They're protected against lawsuits. They're protected even against the IRS, right? Because this is stuff that was set up before that whole structure. And this is what the wealthy people use. And when they, because the wealthy people, the government, right? They created the laws, they created the IRS, they created the tax structure, but they also created the way out. They created their own doors out. They created their own mechanisms out. And this is how you use it, right? And this has just not been widely available. A lot of people have talked about it in different ways, but I don't think they've really brought it together in as unified a picture and a vision as I've been working to create and to do, and also to help simplify it so that people can understand what it is and that the path to get there is actually not as complicated as you might think. So that's what I've been working on putting together. For those who know me, for those who watch all the stuff I do, you understand that I really pull stuff down and I try to simplify it and I try to figure it out so that the common person can understand and access this kind of information and know what to do and what are the steps that they can put themselves in this position of being protected and having the right to their money and to use their money in the long term to set themselves up and to set up their families, to protect their future and their legacy and their children, right? And that's what you want to have. For those of us who've been through COVID, just think what it would have been like to have had a pool of money. And for businesses, this is incredibly powerful. With businesses, these strategies are supercharged. Okay, you are able to create a war chest of money that you can pull on in times of need and in times of difficulty. Hey, Davey, nice to see you. Yes. So these kind of tax strategies are something that I want to make available to everybody who listens to me, to the people who I can contact and reach, to really help you guys dig down and get what is going on and how to set yourself up for success and for financial freedom. So this is going to be coming very, very soon. In fact, I am going to try to do the presentation on this next week for my Financial Ninjas group. That's my goal. So we're going to see if I can get that together to create the presentation and the tables and the structure for what that's going to be. But whether it's next week or the week after, I really want you guys to have this information so that going forward, you are protected and you are in a situation where you can take care of yourself and your family, because just things are so uncertain out there. Tax laws changing all the time. And the interesting thing about this particular structure is a particular type of trust, and how we can use insurance to do these things and how we can marry these together in a very innovative way so that your assets and your income are protected even against changing legislative tax laws and stuff like that, because these structures were set up prior to the tax code and prior to these are very old structures. And so the Supreme Court has ruled that they cannot make legislative changes to certain types of trusts. Some types of trusts are, in fact, legislative creations, so they can change those laws. But there are very early trusts that do not have that. They were prior to this type of legislation, so they're kind of grandfathered in, I guess. And they are based on contract law and constitutional law. So I'm not going to get into that in a huge detail today. I just wanted to let you know that this is coming, and I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited because I've spent a very long time researching this stuff to figure out what was going on. And there was a long time I couldn't figure out, okay, well, what is this? I know that these things don't work. I know that the way they've set up 401ks and IRAs and stuff like that, this was not set up to help you as an individual. It was really set up to help the system, and all the regulations and restrictions on it make it very difficult for individuals to actually use it in the way that they would be most beneficial to an individual. So I knew there had to be a better way, and I kept at it until just kept looking and looking and staying open. Finally, these pieces are all coming together. So I'm really excited to share that with you upcoming. Okay. I just want you to be aware that it's coming so that when you're thinking about how you're going to set yourself up, this is a really key piece to think about: how to set yourself up, how to set up your business, how to set up your investments, how to set up yourself for success in such a way where you are actually following the rules that they have laid down in order to get the greatest benefits that you can. And you don't have to be a big corporation to do it. You don't have to be, setting up offshore Cook Island trusts and, putting companies overseas and all the rest of this stuff, which is what a lot of people and a lot of the big companies do. And if you really want it, like if you got hundreds of millions of dollars, great, you can do that, okay? But for most of us, there are much easier, simpler things that will work for you if you have a small business, even just an individual with an income. There are things that you can do that are not crazy complicated. They're not going to break the bank. So I'm excited to share that with you, and we're going to get going with that. Okay. You guys have a great day. I will talk to you tomorrow. I just want to let you know that this is coming, and get it sorted for you. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great Monday. And hopefully you're doing your strategy work, your catch-up work, so you're going to be on fire and ready for War Tuesday. Okay?